After being outpaced by the S&P 500, the Dow, and the Nasdaq for years, Warren Buffett is back to dominating the markets. Pushed by an 11% rally this year, his company, BRK, now sits at well over $500,000 a share, making it the only non-tech company on the coveted top 10 list. As the markets falter, many throughout the space are beginning to predict wild scenarios, including recession, depressions, and in the case of Michael Burry, hyperinflation, the complete collapse of the modern financial system. In today's video, we look to uncover the truth by digging through the Berkshire archives and analyzing the words of the world's greatest investor, Warren Buffett. We begin with inflation. Despite recent headlines, this is not the first time American consumers are facing double-digit price increases. In 1980, the CPI read as high as 15% before a controversial decision by then Fed President Paul Volcker brought an end to the monetary issues the country was dealing with throughout the 1970s. While you may not be old enough to remember, this decade was littered with inflation issues, recessions, and unpopular wars. For a very long time, academics and economists were all aware that to combat rising prices, a central bank, in our case the Federal Reserve, needed to raise interest rates higher than the official inflation rate to combat the issue. In 1981, that meant raising it to 20%. While this relatively straightforward decision can be made overnight, it unfortunately comes with severe consequences that make it difficult to execute in today's political environment. Fixing inflation is easy despite what everyone on top will tell you, but it's the reaction to this change that makes fixing it an unpopular subject among politicians. Today, our markets are even more sensitive to something called the effective federal funds rate, a number that essentially determines interest rates throughout America. It is guaranteed that raising this rate would induce a recession. You see, this is something everyone needs to understand before continuing this video. Over the course of American history, the Fed has followed a rigid policy of easing or lowering rates when times get tough, and tightening or raising rates when times are good. Look at a chart of this behavior and you can point to a clear pattern. Over the past few decades, this cycle has changed characteristics as the Fed has had to lower rates closer and closer to zero to wake up the economy. Think of it as economic tolerance. After years of abuse, our economy needs more and more drugs to get it going. In the past two recessions, they lowered it to zero, essentially maxing out the economic medication, leaving no margin for future troubles. You see, since about April 2008, the rate has essentially remained at 0% for well over a decade, and that has left many wondering what there is left to do should we experience another unexpected economic mishap. We got an answer in March 2020. To fix the dire situation, the Fed printed a ton of money, which worked. The stock market flourished, and given the fact that business as we know it ended for a couple of months, the Fed saved the day. But as we later found out, drugs bring forth euphoria, but afterward comes the hangover. The result of this desperate attempt to save the economy left us with massive inflation. We are at 40-year highs, and unlike the 1970s, the interest rate is already at zero. Well, technically 0.25% as of yesterday. This is why economists claim that the Federal Reserve is out of ammo. They can't do much to save the economy other than printing more money, but with inflation already at 40-year highs, that option is off the table. As we enter uncharted waters, we move into a situation where we have depleted our interest rate trick and have used up the money printer. Many economists claim that there are only two choices left for the Fed, neither positive. They could choose to ignore the inflation, keep rates at zero, and continue to print money, causing millions of Americans to lose purchasing power, pushing the US dollar to the limit, flirting with the prospect of hyperinflation. Or they could pull a Volcker and raise rates to absurd levels, inducing a recession that would undoubtedly crash the US economy for years to come. It would save the dollar but ruin millions of lives, at least temporarily. While some believe a soft landing is possible, Warren is not in agreement. Over the past decade, his company has amassed a massive $145 billion war chest. In the case of a massive correction, he stands ready to buy when blood is on the streets. His only problem is that the Fed has essentially cured recessions in this country with essentially no bear market since about 2008. He's hoping there's at least one more before he goes. If you don't believe me, take a listen for yourself. He's always maintained this simple philosophy.
Let's talk a little bit about the fact that the market's down almost 800 points this morning.
Yeah.
Concern for you?
Well, no, that's good for us, actually. I mean, we're a net buyer of stocks over time. And just like being a net buyer of food, I expect to buy food the rest of my life, and I hope that food goes down in price tomorrow. So when stocks are down, we're going to be buying on balance. And who wouldn't rather buy it, at a lower price than a higher price? People are really strange on that. I mean, because most people, most of your listeners are savers, and that means they'll be net buyers, and they should want the stock market to go down. They should want to buy at a lower price, but they have that feeling that they just feel better when stocks are going up.
Now here's the thing with Warren. He is indeed a net buyer of stocks overall, but in the past 10 years, Berkshire has largely remained on the sidelines. Following the post-recession era, his firm has been reluctant to buy anything. Other than Apple, which has blown up to become 40% of his publicly traded portfolio, the only stock Warren has been interested in has been his own. Billions upon billions of dollars were poured into repurchasing his own shares of BRK, so much so that he usually posts an announcement at the bottom of his Berkshire annual letter, letting people know that if anyone is interested in selling their BRK stock, to please contact his people immediately, as he would like to be the first to purchase. This strategy may sound incredibly boring, waiting years and years for a recession, then going on buying sprees, and Warren makes it clear that he simply doesn't care. Take a listen to this perfect explanation from decades ago.
You literally every day have thousands of the major American corporations offered to you at a price that changes daily, and you don't have to make any decisions. You have to make, nothing is forced upon you. So there are no called strikes in the business. The pitcher just stands there and throws balls at you. And if you're playing real baseball and it's between the knees and the shoulders, you either swing or you got a strike called on you. If you get too many called on you, you're out. In the securities business, you sit there and they throw U.S. Steel at 25 and they throw General Motors at 68, and you don't have to swing at any of them. They may be wonderful pitches to swing at, but if you don't know enough, you don't have to swing. And you can sit there and watch thousands of pitches, and finally you get one right there where you want it, something that you understand, and then you swing. And
so you might not swing for 6 months.
You might not swing for 2 years.
Isn't that boring?
It would bore most people, and certainly boredom is a problem with most professional money managers. If they try to sit out an inning or two, not only do they get somewhat antsy, but their clients will start yelling, "Swing, you bum."
As always, thank you guys for watching. Please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed it.